Okay, I will call the meeting back to order, and this afternoon we will be live streamed. Our technical difficulties have been corrected, but this morning's portion of the meeting is going to be downloaded later. It was recorded. Okay, so we will move to, in our agenda, 7.8, request for decision, the National Volunteer Week. And Lorraine, is that something you'll take?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So National Volunteer Week is upcoming at the end of this month, April 24th to 30th. The National Volunteer Week theme this year is volunteering is empathy in action, and it affirms a strong connection between volunteerism and empathy. Empathy is a quality that can help people relate to others and build awareness around different experiences. It connects people and ideas and actions and helps create bonds forged in common goals and aspirations. Volunteering, putting empathy into action can build communities where people feel happier, healthier, and more welcome, creating a stronger, more connected Canada. The county still recognizes volunteers basically year long. We are going to have a volunteer event on April 27th, probably utilizing the Jewel Theatre. We're also going to be recognizing our volunteers on June the 16th for the Stettler Community Service Awards. Is the date that has been chosen in Vineware. So the options is that the County of Stettler proclaim April 24th to 30th, 2022 as National Volunteer Week.
Thank you, Lorraine. Yeah, we do have a lot of awesome volunteers in the County of Stettler, and largely much of things we enjoy today was due to the volunteerism that we've enjoyed. So I think it would be fitting to declare Volunteer Week, April 24th to 30th. If we could have someone entertain that motion. Mr. Stevens.
I'll give you that motion, and just to add to what Lorraine said, with the Community Service Awards, I feel this is long overdue. This has been put off the last couple of years because of COVID, and I'd like to echo how it's exciting that we can once again do these sorts of things to give back to our community volunteers.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Stevens has the motion to proclaim April 24th to 30th as Volunteer Week in the county. All those in favor?
In favor.
Motion is carried. 7.9, the LUB and MDP Steering Committee. It's a request for decision on page 57 of the package.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jacinta, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you. So as you're aware, Parkland Community Planning Services is reviewing our land use bylaw and our municipal development plan. And part of that process is to appoint a steering committee to oversee the upgrades to those documents. And so we are requesting direction on how the steering committee should be compiled of a certain amount of councillors and members at large. Our previous review, we had 3 councillors and 5 members at large that assisted throughout the process. They attended the regular meetings that we have and as well attended any public engagements during that process. So, and we also want direction on how these members at large should be compensated.
And was that 3 and 5 set up for both the LUB and the MDP? Yeah.
We did not have a steering committee for the land use bylaw amendment.
That was full council.
11. It was just strictly the municipal development plan where we had a steering committee appointed.
And in this recommendation, it would be for both of them to be the same.
It would, yeah. They're kind of being updated in alignment with one another because they, there's some of the policies that are extended to both.
That's okay, council. Decision's yours how to set this up.
Quick question. Do we want the steering committee to be an even number?
Is there value in having odd numbers, say 3 councillors and 4 members at large, just if there is kind of a disagreement, then there is a majority one way or the other?
At your discretion, that's what we're presenting to. The makeup of, you could have an equal member of council as the members at large, if that's, feel would be more.
I wasn't so concerned about
The makeup of members at large versus councillors, it was more just the cumulative, whether it be an odd or an even number is what I was suggesting.
The steering committees typically operate by consensus rather than vote. So you don't really run into that tie vote issue.
It then comes back to council's decision on that one there. They're only kind of bring back ideas to us just so that there's no, I'd like to be able to see like a 3-3, so it's kind of. I guess I'll make that motion that we consisting of 3 council members, 3 members at large, and be paid what had we been paid in the past for these members at large.
We have 2 different rates that we will reimburse members at large. There's the council rate, which is typical of our appeal boards, or there's the Rural Rec Board and Rural Crime Prevention Committee rates, which is $50 a meeting. So it's up to council to sort of decide which one of those 2 would be the most appropriate.
I think there's quite a bit in order to really, for them to really take on here, so I'll go with council reimbursement.
Typically, these meetings will be much longer than a rec board meeting or something. Okay, Councilor Gender has made the motion for that the steering committee be made up of 3 councillors, 3 members at large, with the reimbursement to be at the council rate. Any further discussion on that?
Are we going to advertise for these 3 positions?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then our council, once everyone's here, they'll have a chance to put their names forward and we'll decide or not before we set the committee. Okay, any further discussion? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And Mr. Clark?
In favor?
Okay, that motion is carried. 7.1, request for decision for the road cleanup policy. Page 59 of the package.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did you want to talk this? You want me to?
You go ahead.
Okay, I'll give it my best shot here. So we had groups that came forward and we allowed them to clean up certain portions of county roadways and paid them good fundraisers. And of course, we weren't out picking it up and we limit them to paved areas or areas that have been treated so that they don't get dusted out. That's always a safety concern for me. We eliminated it basically due to COVID and budget constraints. But we've had requests now for groups to go out and clean the highway. I think it's a good news story for the county of Stellar, so I recommended that we bring the council policy back and that we, based on this policy, we authorize groups to clean up our roadways, and our total budget for 22 is $2,500.
Okay. I was just in the policy description here, I can find it right now. The pay increases within close proximity to a town, I believe it said. And I do recall, I guess with the provincial program, it worked the same way. Because I remember our 4-H club always cleaned close to Stellar. There was twice as much garbage, but then you only had to walk half as far. And so, but by definition of a town, does that mean town? Or does that mean village or hamlet as well?
My interpretation would specifically be town.
No, I think that's more important because the garbage where you close to a town is really high because they have all the fast food outlets. And some people aren't very good at taking garbage home, so, okay. Well, that's one thing I want to clarify, but you know, it's a good policy and I think it's good for the groups that need to find some fundraising. Councillor Gender.
I'd be serious, but it's supposed to be advertising that we're picking up from these fast foods.
No. And there are no tweaks needed to this policy. We'll ask for a move. Councilor Gender.
Yes, I'll go for option number 1, please.
Adopted as presented, okay. All those in favor? And,
In favor?
okay, that motion is carried. Okay, 7.11 on the agenda is a request for decision for emergency preparedness week. Page 62 of the package.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nikki, is that you or is that it?
Yeah, that's me. So May 1st to 7th, 2022 is Emergency Preparedness Week. And we just spent the weekend at the Stettler County or Stettler Trade Show discussing emergency preparedness with all our visitors that came through the booth. So we are asking everyone to get prepared this year. So we have lists. If you need a list, come by the county and we'll still be handing those out or talking to you about what you might need to be prepared for 72 hours in case of a natural disaster or a weather event in our region. And we're asking council to consider proclaiming May 1st to 7th, 2022, Emergency Preparedness Week, so that we can talk about it a little bit more and perhaps get some more people prepared with their kits. And in addition, today we are going to be giving away our backpack, a 72-hour emergency preparedness kit. Has everything 2 people need in it to survive for 72 hours. So we'll draw a name whenever you're ready.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go through our motion first and then we'll make the draw. Who do I have? Councilor McKay? I'll make that motion, yep. Okay, that the county of Stettler declare or proclaim May 1st to 7th as Emergency Preparedness Week. All those in favor?
In favor?
Okay, that motion is carried. Now we'll make the draw from the trade show. Everyone that wanted to put their name in the bucket.
That's pretty brave, and that's just dipping your hand and not knowing what's in there.
D. Reiter, Reiter, and we'll be giving Mr. or Miss Reiter a call.
Okay, and the phone number, just the first part, where it might be.
403-742. That's our local number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, congratulations to the Raiders. They got themselves an emergency preparedness kit. Okay, now we're moving on to 7.12, and it's in addition to our agenda package today, it's regarding the FCM annual conference.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I wanted to get this on the agenda. We kind of postponed it at the organizational meeting because the FCM annual conferences have been basically on hold for the last 2 years due to COVID. But in 2022, you can either do a virtual attendance or an in-person attendance. But the early bird closes on Friday, April 22nd. So we need a decision so we can take advantage of the cheaper registration rate. This year it's in Regina, Saskatchewan. It's from June 2nd to 5th.
Okay. And typically, would we send a couple council if they're so choose?
Yeah, typically with 4-year terms, we've been sending 2 counselors per year, and then at the last one, 1 counselor and 1 member of administration.
Okay. So I guess how we do we want to approach this to see who would like to go, or do we draw from a, or what's the best process, I guess?
Maybe start by who would be available to go.
Okay, this one isn't just too terribly far, so who would be available to attend? I mean, it is good to represent all of rural Alberta because this is a federal conference where the urban counterparts are there, so it does get urban rural voice heard. And who would be available to attend this conference, June 2nd to 5th. Mr. Jenner?
I'll just add to that, like, whenever Alberta's gone to these FCMs, we are 1/4 of the voting power there. So we've got that much more ample that fight that we can bring to them for the voting process. So it is very important that we do go. I'll say that I'm available.
Okay, Ernie, is
One, good. Paul, would you be able to go?
I just don't know that time of the year.
So I'm gonna hold off on that right now.
Justin, is that something that interests you?
If my schedule's questionable that time of year, if none of the other counselors can, then I'll make myself available, but if there's someone with a little more,
Open, and I'd be fine with foregoing this.
Okay. And
Larry, are you available?
Yeah, I probably could be. It is that time of year that we're guys trying to get everything else done, but, if it comes down to it, if we need a second one, I probably could go to, like, it's just, I think that case we throw people's name in a hat too.
And then we can,
It is important, though, I agree with Councilor Jenner, because I saw when I was at the one on the East Coast, it was very, beneficial to Alberta to have as many delegates there as we had, because we all had a vote.
yeah, no, for sure. No, it's very important. Okay, well, we do have some names that could likely fill that second spot. And, okay, so doesn't give us a good motion, though. We could appoint one with the other two to let Yvette know by the end, or will that work?
Yeah, we could contact Councilor Niagara, Councilor Grover and see if they're available, and we could, if you're amenable to the ones that are available to go, we'll throw your names in the hat and we'll do it.
Okay. Okay, no, that's, I guess, the way we'll do. We'll make a motion to approve Ernie today, and the other four, whichever one can be available, will be chosen. If there's more than one available, then it'll be a draw of a hat.
Mr. Chairman, could we get a motion, just basically council authorizing the attendance of 2 councilors? And in the past, we've also extended it to the councilor's spouse.
Okay, a motion to approve 2 council members attend the FCM, and their spouses are welcome to join. Councilor McKay.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Councilor McKay has made the motion for approval of 2 councilors and their wives. In this case, all those in favor?
In favor?
Okay, that motion's carried. Unfinished business, 8.1, council fee sheets. We had a ratepayer inquire that how come council charged 2 half-days instead of 1 full day? And according to policy CN 1.1, council remuneration, evening meetings are to be claimed as a half-day. So when a council member attends a meeting in the day and then forgoes his evening to attend another meeting, that qualifies for the claim to be 2 half-days. So hopefully that'll clarify it for the ratepayer that had asked that question. Is there any further comments? Councilor Gender?
It's also like the one meeting then was in the afternoon from 2 to 4. So then there's a lagging of time. Some people have to go home for supper or whatever. And so there's be also an additional charge on mileage that would be accumulated to this. And then being that it's also at night. So like myself, I've been on committees when there's 2 meetings in a day, but they go back to back, and that is 1 day. But on this one here, being that there's a distance, some time between them, and regarding the mileage, and also the one at night, I believe it's justified to have the 2 half days.
that is what the policy states, and I know myself, I've done the same thing. If I've had a daytime meeting, then I've basically killed time in town so that I don't have double mileage, and I've bought my supper and then attended the nighttime meeting. Councillor Stevens?
I can certainly understand and sympathize with those that are further and further away. Some of the councillors definitely have to travel quite a ways in and out to these meetings, but I guess my anchoring position on this is I've gotten paid by a day rate or half day rate in my full-time work for quite a number of years now. Oil field construction is known as being one of the most lucrative lines of work you can get. At this point, even in $100 barrel oil, if I attend 2 different job sites or 2 different projects for 2 different clients, in my full-time job, I still can't charge 2 half days or a day and a half. So I guess I have troubles personally. If I can't do it in my lucrative full-time job, I struggle with it as a councillor.
I would think maybe.
Mr. Stevens?
Well, Mr. Clark?
Yeah, no, I just have to pick out a couple of things that Councillor Stevens made quite obvious. Is it's lucrative oil field job. Like, I do know what mileage was paid 7 years ago when I left. And I do know how meals were paid and I know everything else. And this is all the government rates. This is what other councils do. We compare our bylaws, and I feel that if somebody stays in town, we all have jobs too. It's just because, every one of us has something else that we do. And I do know myself that a lot of times that night meeting can, really be a pain in the neck because you've got cattle feed and other things that you need to do. So I do feel that it is fair, and it's not that it happens that often. And that from this end, and comparing it to oil field, there's comparison on what the rates are or what the mileage is. So let's put real to real, and we're comparing ourselves to other counties also. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Well, I think this piece now that we've clarified needs to be received for information unless someone wants to make a motion that we open this policy and change the policy. 2 options.
I'll put a motion to receive for information.
Discussion, Justin?
I would like to make one other comment, a little bit different than my previous one. There was also a concern raised about the CAO signing and approving these. And I'm not certain that that's necessary. I actually see an issue with that, since Yvette, the CAO, is council's only employee. I'm not sure if we need to get her involved in approving these fee sheets. And I see it as somewhat of a conflict of interest. We set the policy, and on this particular policy, I seem to have a minority opinion, and I'm good with that. That's the majority council decision. But this is somewhat of a self-policing thing. This is why we review it each meeting. This is why we approve the fee sheets. As an amendment, I'm not sure if we need to drag council's only employee into approving these when there is a conflict having our employee approve our fee sheets. I would like to see this so that when we review this during our council meeting, we approve our fee sheets. That's where the approval comes from. I'm not sure if adding staff in it is really necessary in that sense. And admittedly, I made a mistake on mine, and Yvette has caught it and given me a heads up, and I greatly appreciate that. But I'm not sure if it's her responsibility, nor do I think that I want to put her in that position as our only employee.
One thing I did notice too, though, is Yvette does catch things that have been missed sometimes, and she is able to correct some things that have been directed for her to correct. And also, I know in mine, I quickly get to the threshold where the mileage rate changes per kilometer. Yvette can help me on this. I think it's 5,000 kilometers or something, where it changes, and she is the one that will change the rate, whereas council wouldn't know probably when I hit that amount. So, and then I'm not sure, staff can help me on this one, is through our, the MGA and everything, does a staff member have to look at these or approve these or whatever to bring to council?
I can answer it. Currently, the only thing requiring it is our own policy that requires the CEO approve fee sheets. However, that's council's discretion. If you prefer that be review fee sheets instead of approve,
Okay.
then you still have all the benefits of the vet having her eyes on it and making sure your I's are dotted and T's are crossed as best as possible. But then we would amend the subsequent line as well, where fee sheets and expense claims are to be received as information by council, whereas we would say that they are approved retroactively by council. And so if you wanted to so direct, we could bring that back to the next meeting.
Okay. Is Councillor Stevens, is that something that would interest you more, just to have them reviewed by the CEO and then approved by council?
That makes more sense to me, and yeah, I would prefer to see that approach.
Okay. And Mr. Clark, did you have a comment?
Yeah, the comment I got too is that typically none of us really expense very much at all and don't probably expense what we could expense back to the county. But if anybody does, that review by CEO Cassidy is also to the effect of what's a chargeable expense and what isn't. And it's not, I guess, that she's approving it. She's just letting somebody know that, no, this isn't chargeable or this is chargeable according to your policies and bylaws. So I do think it's very important that either a vet or somebody signs off that it has been reviewed to ensure that changes in mileage, any charges are acceptable charges, so that we're not brought under scrutiny of individuals such as that sent this letter in. So because we're following what we committed to follow.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask for two motions on this one. I'm going to ask for a motion to accept for information the clarification we give the ratepayer on policy number CN 1.1. And then I'll go for a motion to adjust the review. And for the first motion to receive for information, I think Mr. Clark, you had made that motion?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Mr. Clark has moved to receive for information. All those in favor?
In favor?
And that was carried. Okay, the second part, Mr. Stevens' suggestion and with input from council. What's someone care to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Stevens moves.
It should be the administration to bring back this policy so that council fee sheets would be reviewed, but the approval would not come from the CEO. It would be approved retroactively by council at the following meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Silberg, I have a question on that though too, is that part, I think what we have is that we're supposed to sign off on them, which is very difficult when we're doing everything in the electronic world. So I guess if we're looking at that, if she's accepted it, or reviewed it, does that mean that we submitted it so that we're covered off on that from an audit basis too?
This administration comment?
I think if administration could just have time to take it back, and we'll review the policy holistically to cover those concerns as well.
Okay.
Okay,
I just got one more. Okay, we'll take this to vote, and then I've got a comment I'd like to make too.
okay. There's no further discussion. We'll vote on Mr. Stevens' motion. All those in favor?
In favor?
That motion is carried. Okay, Mr. Clark?
I guess the comment I got is once again, we've got very much minority population that questions this stuff and seems to question them every month. Which I know we're supposed to be, we're transparent, we're following the rules we lay out. So read the rules, see if what's chargeable is acceptable. But if you got a bone to grind with the county, that's not where to grind it. So with this individual, there's outstanding issues with him, and I do. We need to work towards resolving that, but he also has to work towards resolving it. And just throwing snowballs all the time isn't a way to resolve it. So I guess my point to make on that is typically we get very few questions from the majority of our ratepayers. And I think they recognize the amount of effort and the amount of time people put in and the amount of free time themselves that they put in when you're taking calls at night, you're going and touring your areas with parts of vet staff if you have to look at certain things. And there's no charges for it. Maybe we're not transparent enough because we don't show it on our timesheets and show no charge. But it's part of your role. And we're checking your roads and everything else. Like it's things that people don't see, but I think the majority of people see it, and we're kind of dancing to a very, very small amount of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. I think we all realize there's a past history on this one. Okay, we'll move on now to 9.1, a memo regarding a project update on bridge load evaluation on page 64. I guess I did note, I just looked at the clock. We'll wait till after our delegation. I see our delegation's here, and the time for them to present is also here. So I will ask our presenters from Battle River or the Watershed Alliance, if you would come forward for your presentation.
Good. Right there, nice. Off the podium and everything.
Might have to hold the remote up a little bit to advance the slide.
Okay, brilliant.
And before we start, well, welcome first and foremost, and we'll go through introductions so you know who you're speaking with today, and then you'll be able to introduce yourselves when you give your presentation. But we'll, I guess we'll start with Yvette again, and we'll go around this way.
Yvette Cassidy, CEO.
And Andrew?
Andrew Brishik, Director of Municipal Services.
Nikki Thorstensen, Director of Communications.
And in the back row?
Linda Donovan, Director of Planning Services.
Rick Reed, Director of Engineering, or Operations, sorry.
Okay, and then I'll start over with Ernie.
Ernie Gendron, good afternoon.
Paul McKay, good afternoon.
Justin Stevens.
Les Stuhlberg, welcome, and go ahead.
And Larry Clark's called in. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us, everyone. My name is Carson Vinegar. I'm the engagement assistant with the Battle River Watershed Alliance. Yes, there we go. I'm Carson Vinegar, the engagement assistant. Thank you for having us.
Could you repeat your name one more time in the mic?
Carson Vinegar.
Thank you.
And I'm Sarah Skinner. I'm the Watershed Program Manager at the Watershed Alliance. And we'll kick us off with Carson here.
Oh, yeah. I'm just missing a page of our notes, so we'll find that.
Yeah,
There we go. Thank you. So yeah, thank you for having us here today. We're from the Battle River Watershed Alliance, and we like to do a presentation to all the councils in our municipality every few years, just to give you an update of who we are and what we're doing. Obviously, it's been a few years with COVID, so now we're really happy to be doing this tour. We are a, oh yeah, Sarah, we'll get.
Here.
There we go. We are a nonprofit, non-governmental organization. We're based in Camrose, and we work to sustain the health of the land, the water, the people, and the communities in the Battle River and Sounding Creek watersheds. And we're a multi-stakeholder group, so you can see in the right circle there, we have members and board members, especially from various backgrounds, academia, industry, agriculture, and from government as well. We've got currently 4 board members who are representing municipalities in the area. There's a few staff members and a few councillors, and we've actually got a 5th spot available that we're hoping to fill this summer if anyone wants to take that. Next one. And just to give you a bit of an idea of our area that we work in, thank you, Andrew. That's the Battle River Watershed and Sounding Creek, the Alberta portions. So you can see Stettler is about maybe half is within our watershed and half is within the Red Deer River watershed. So you might be hearing from them as well. And I'm gonna, this is some ways that we want to talk about and help your municipality with things such as conserving water quality and quantity, which we all need to, offer all the services you supply to your residents and your industry and agriculture, as well as the environmental services. And knowing about balancing the economic, social, and ecological priorities, some conversations we've had with other municipalities already about having to walk a line between all of those. A lot of the work we do is about engaging with citizens about watershed issues. So we'll give you a rundown of some of the outreach events and activities we put on. And also planning and management for environmental regulations and how we can do better land use and water use. And overall, this is just trying to have a healthy and resilient watershed for us all to enjoy. Next, I'll give just a brief overview of some of our education programs. So these ones are all on this slide, school group normally, but we can also do them as a public event to get people out. So Discover Your Wetland is for grade 5s. They all tie into their curriculums. So this one is about the water cycles, learning about the watershed, and then getting into their ponds and rivers and doing pond dipping for the macroinvertebrates and all the critters in there. So that's a fun time. The Waste in Our Watershed tour is for grade 4s, and that's currently only offered in Camrose, but we'd love to expand to other places. And it is really great. It's in partnership with the city of Camrose, and it gives a tour, a busload of students, a tour of all the waste streams, both liquid and solid. So we visit the landfill, the recycling depot, and then the source water treatment plant and sewage lagoons. So the students can get an idea of, where all the resources they're using are coming from and going. And then Extreme Science is for grades 7 to 12. And it is a step up from Discover Your Wetland, where we're doing the pond dipping again, but this time with a little bit of scientific experiment. So we've got them in the hip waders and D-nets, and you're using the macroinvertebrates they find to calculate the health of the water, as well as using chemical analyses. A couple other ones. Caring for Our Watersheds is a yearly competition that we're finishing up right now with the finals next week. And we've had over 250 proposals written in this year where students have an idea of what they want to do to improve their watershed. And we've passed those through a panel of judges, and 10 finalists have been selected to present this coming week to compete for up to $1,000 cash prize for themselves, matching amount for the teachers. And then they can all apply for implementation money as well. So for example, this group from Lacombe from last year wanted to put in a garden in their school. So we were able to provide implementation money for that one. Another new one that might be a little more applicable to the county here is Future Farmers for Freshwater, which we're aiming towards doing with 4-H groups and other similar agricultural societies. So we would start out with a presentation going out to their group, kind of like this, introducing ourselves and teaching them a bit about the watershed and the relationship between water and agriculture. And then we also want to do a stewardship community project, which could involve something like doing a tree planting in a riparian area and getting these young future farmers thinking about these things just before they even are on their own farms. And the last few things are a little fun thing that we do, which is the Battle River Paddle Guide. And these are a way for us to get people out in their local communities get a bit of local tourism going. And they are guides of where to put in, where to take out, distances, safety, plant and animals to look out for, and some local attractions, such as restaurants or events that go on. So there's the Big John route here above Big Knife Provincial Park. There's several others. Sarah can scroll through.
I just mentioned something I just had to mention because it would be directly relevant to the county of Stettler, that the Big John route is named after John Pearson, Big John, because it was a very long, very beautiful, but very long paddling day. We had a lot of fun, but we thought it was appropriate since it was bordering on county of Stettler to name it after John. He has also been a board member of ours in the past, so yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so this is a way for you councillors and for the people in this area to get out and enjoy their local lakes and rivers. There's a few other reaches you can go, and you can find all that on our website, and there's an interactive map that shows where to go as well. I'll pass off to Sarah.
I'm gonna take that so you don't lose it. All right, I guess I'll keep going unless I need my hands. Yeah, so just switching gears a little bit into our watershed management and planning work. Definitely it's a core aspect of our work to look at this watershed management, planning, and also stewardship work. And all of that, this work is informed by looking at the current health of our watershed. So what is our water quality? How much water do we have? Intact or not intact ecosystems, any number of different things that contribute to the health of the watershed we're interested in looking at. And really, I think, hopefully that's represented in this watershed management framework that's been guiding this work for many years at this point, and developed in partnership with municipalities, people like you and other partners across the watershed, talking together about what matters about this place, what do we value, what are some of the challenges or issues we face collectively, and what are some of our collective understandings of solutions to those challenges. And so working together to both learn about what are the ins and outs of the health of our watershed, as well as what are those recommendations that we maybe can put forward together in terms of what we refer to as watershed management recommendations. So we've developed recommendations documents for 7 out of the 12 components that you'll see there around the framework diagram, and working to complete those recommendation documents for the remaining areas as well. You can see the existing recommendations on the Battle River Watershed Alliance website if you're curious to learn more. And yeah, just think together about what are the recommendations, how could they be applied in this area, in your backyard, in the county of Stettler overall. I think that's really a valuable conversation for us to have together. One area that we're hoping to focus some more attention on in the coming years is one of the bottom boxes there, the land use practices box. This is an area that is no stranger to municipalities, counties especially. Land use practices are core to so much of how land and water is managed at this local level. Municipalities playing a significant role in guiding that management and development through land use bylaws, municipal and intermunicipal development plans, other policies and programs that you already have in place. And so we're looking into putting our heads together with municipalities across the watershed to what we're currently deeming as a land and water advisory group, to have more of those in-depth discussions about how we can better integrate or connect the dots between those land use bylaws, the municipal development plans, and also these watershed management recommendations that have been put forward. What are the synergies between those? What are places where municipal bylaws and plans can help to reinforce and actually make possible or a reality on the ground in this area, if they make sense for this area? Just looking at how they can be mutually beneficial when we're talking about how can we care for the overall health of the watershed and align that with what you are already doing here in the county. So we're looking at, pulling a group of people together. So you can, at this point, just stay tuned for more communication from us about what that might look like for you to get involved if you see that as an opportunity that you're interested in. We're also looking into different funding sources that could support this work. One area that we're looking into is the Alberta Community Partnership Grant, and if that might align with this sort of work. And so municipalities being key partners in applying for some of this funding that may support the work that we're doing together. So lots of other ways that I think our work can hopefully align and support one another in this work of watershed management. Everything from having people like you come out to our workshops, events to share your local knowledge and experience with us. That's hugely valuable for informing just realistic goals for how we can support land and water health here. Just other examples of work we've done. There's just one example here from a partnership between ourselves as well as the City of Camrose and Camrose County to develop a source water protection plan for, in this case, Dried Meat Lake and some of the tributary streams that feed into that lake, recognizing that it's a source water, both as drinking water for the city, but also any number of different agricultural, industrial, business uses of that water as well. So looking at how can we work to protect that source water together. Also, lots of ways that municipalities are involved in helping us, and I think helping really the landowners to take that action on the ground. Just a picture there of one fencing project that we've been able to work with the landowner on. In our case, always looking for what funding can we find to then pass on to landowners who are interested in doing this work. Could be anything from putting trees and other native plants in the ground. It could be putting that fence in to protect the riparian area, putting in a livestock watering system. So yeah, municipalities have already been a great support in this work, and I think that will carry forward into the future. Because certainly we're continuously looking at how can we find that funding to support that on the ground action. And just flipping to the next slide, municipalities having great support. Often it's the in-kind support of, having the ag fieldman or the assistant ag fieldman to help us to put together a field day or a workshop out there in the field or on the water's edge to learn together about what are the different watering systems that might work, the different fencing systems that might be possible? How can you measure rangeland health, crop health, the different ways that water can be managed across the landscape? So yeah, we really value that municipal partnership helping us to bring people together in that way, and a lot of that local knowledge that just helps to strengthen and really bring it home how these things are possible or work or don't work in this particular context, whatever that might be. So I think I'll leave that one at that. A related, too far. There we go. A related project that we're just completing this year is the Riparian Intactness Assessment Project. So this was a project that we undertook with the bulk of funding coming from the CAP program, so the Canadian Agricultural Partnership Program, but also working together with several different watershed groups across central as well as northern Alberta. And the project is really all about using satellite imagery. So you can picture Google Maps or Google Earth, that kind of satellite imagery used to measure the intactness of thousands of kilometers of shoreline or riparian areas along lakes, creeks, rivers, in our watershed as well as well beyond at this point, both down into the Red Deer River watershed, where part of the county of Stettler is, as well as the North Saskatchewan watershed and beyond. And looking at the intactness of these riparian areas is one piece of the puzzle. Another thing that we're able to look at using that intactness data is what are some areas that would benefit from either conservation, areas that are currently in a healthy state, how can we conserve that health or integrity, and then also areas that might benefit from restoration, so areas that are less intact, that maybe we can build back some of that integrity of those areas. Incredibly important areas for fish and wildlife habitat, for water quality and quantity, for any number of those watershed or ecosystem services that they help support. So we have some like hands-on resources to pass out to you. We figured we'd wait till the end so you can look at them as we're maybe chatting about a few questions, and then also take it and spend some time reading through it just to get a bit more familiar with the data, the ins and outs of it, what it can and can't tell us. If you're curious to learn more, we are also regularly hosting what we're calling riparian web portal workshops to, just dive a little bit deeper into this data and how hopefully you can put it to good use in this region. Related to that, I mentioned already, but the riparian web portal is a crucial part of that. So the web portal being an online platform, a website that you can go to with an interactive map where you can view the data as well as access quite a variety of resources related to riparian areas. How can we manage them in different settings? So a place that absolutely it would be great if you could cruise on over to, explore the riparian web portal. And as part of these virtual workshops that we host, it really does provide you with an opportunity to get to know your way around that web portal as well. So it can hopefully be a tool for you to use. All right, I will leave that one at that. Just a brief look at our funding. So you can see there that government funding is hugely important to what we do, whether it's provincial core funding or other grants that we're able to apply for at that level. Federal grants as well. You'll see that municipal funding is in there. It's a smaller piece of the puzzle, but I'd say a crucial piece of the puzzle. It's putting those local dollars to good use within this local area. The Battle River watershed is our heart and soul, so that's where that heart and soul is being directed, is right here in these local areas. We have a number of different corporate grants that feed into often our education programs. So Nutrien supporting the Caring for Our Watersheds program, other organizations or businesses like Cargill and Canna Enbridge often contributing at different times to those education programs, and just making it possible for us to carry on those wonderful, fun education programs that we offer. And related to the municipal funding piece, flip to this next slide because it mentions one of the mechanisms through which we invite municipalities to consider supporting our work financially is through our Invest 50 campaign. So this is inviting you to consider contributing 50 cents per capita or 50 cents per person of the people within, in your case, it would be the population within the Battle River portion of your watershed, to support our work. So that will be a letter that's coming out separately from the presentation today, but you can keep an eye out for that and consider supporting us in that way. But I also always like to say that there's an incredible value in that in-kind support that counties like yours provide to us, whether it's through board or committee participation or coming out to our workshops and sharing your insights that way, is hugely valuable in supporting this work as well. And you'll also see, I mentioned it already, but that land and water advisory group, looking at how do we better integrate or draw connections between municipal land use planning and this broader regional watershed planning. And this is just reiterating that riparian web portal training that we offer. We have 2 dates coming up, May 5th and 6th. If you're not available on those days but would be interested in attending, we will hopefully be offering another round of the workshops sometime later in the year. But yeah, if you are interested and able to come to these, please feel most welcome to come. We'd love to see you there. Both a 101 intro workshop and then a 102 diving a little bit deeper into the riparian web portal itself and the data behind that. Sometimes it likes jumping too. Oh, there we go. It's just a question slide anyways, but yeah, thanks for taking the time to listen to us. And if there are any questions you have, I guess we could also pass around the folder so you have something to look at in your hands, if that maybe sparks any questions too.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation, Sarah and Carson. And yeah, we all know the importance of managing watersheds to keep healthy waterways. In the county of Stettler, our potable water is drawn from the Red Deer River. And I was just wondering about Battle River. You did mention the city of Camrose draws water from Dried Meat Lake for potable uses. Are there any other communities draw water from the Battle River for potable water other within Alberta?
So Town of Wainwright would be one of them. And then I believe at this point, also the city of Wetaskiwin. And then their wastewater would be going also back towards the Battle River. Yeah. And I think, I guess related to County of Stettler, it would be looking at, and you'll be able to see it in the riparian reports there, all of the creeks flowing through this area that flow towards the Battle River. And yeah, how can we work together to maintain or improve the health of those areas? Yeah.
I have a second question, if I may. In lakes, I've read fishing reports where they maybe don't recommend eating the fish out of this lake, or they'll say limit eating fish to, is it 2 per day from if you've caught them in this certain lake. Do you have any stats on the Battle River, the health of the river, and when it comes to fish in it?
Unfortunately, in terms of fish health related to eating the fish, I haven't seen any studies done right in like fish caught from the river. More so I've seen it with lakes, like especially Pigeon Lake is where I've seen the most studies, because Pigeon Lake in many ways has been the most studied lake in our watershed for sure. So I'd like to see that more. I don't have any answer about it, but I'd like to maybe talk to the fisheries people and see if it's possible to do more of that type of a fish survey in the river, because there's lots of people
They fish in
yeah.
Big Knife Provincial Park. They do a lot of fishing. No, I was just curious to see, because that's an indicator of how healthy the waterway is.
Absolutely. And the last pretty in-depth, extensive fish health, fish population survey that was done throughout the Battle River was done back in 2007, 2008. So that's over a decade ago now, which is hard for even me to comprehend. Like, how long have I been around? And that's already a long time ago that they were looking both at fish species and just their overall health as well. But yeah, to revisit that, see if it's possible to revisit that kind of a survey.
Okay, and Mr. Stevens?
Another fish-related question. Does the Battle River have issues with invasive species, carp, etc.? I know that the Red Deer River is having some issues around that. I was just wondering if that was true with Battle River as well.
Yeah, I don't know that we've looked closely enough to really know for sure whether or not we have something like goldfish in the river. I'm hoping not, and I haven't heard or seen any tangible evidence of that, but knowing how quickly it happens that something like goldfish gets into like city stormwater ponds in places like Camrose or otherwise, and if there's connectivity there from stormwater to local creeks to then the river, it's a potential. So I think that's one area that if we can continue together to raise awareness about that, and with hopefully that growing awareness that people wouldn't release things that maybe shouldn't be going into the water. Sometimes it's about signage near those places to at least, spark something in people's mind about this is a potential. We wouldn't like to see this because it can cause these problems, that sort of thing. I know Alberta Environment has some great resources around that. So even distributing that and talking about it at whether it's our events or your events or or however we might get the word out. But yeah, we also got lots of nice invasive land species too, but that's another story. But it's interesting to see. I don't know if County of Stettler has done anything related to where you might see some of those invasive species near water where it's either not ideal or not possible to spray. Can you use goats or can you use the biological controls like the weevils that will eat your tansy or your leafy spurge or whatever else it might be? Like thinking outside the box and how can we manage some of these issues that we might be seeing? Yeah.
All right, does council have any further questions? Sarah Carson? This gentleman, good. Yeah, Mr. Clark, did you have any questions?
No, I was good on that, thank you.
Okay, great.
The only other thing I would mention is just to give you some orientation to the package we gave you. So there's the riparian intactness report in there. So that's specific to the County of Stettler, but there's also the more in-depth report that'll be on that USB card that you got if you want to learn more about how the data was collected and the broader scope of where that data was collected for. And then, a few other resources related to our work that you can take a glance through and
for sure.
Let us know if anything else comes up for you.
Well, thanks again for coming, for giving your presentation. It's always great to hear from you. And we'll definitely be in touch if we have concerns and appreciate the material you're leaving for us. And we'll look forward to your letter.
Yes, thank you, for sure. I was just gonna say, I guess also these additional folders could go to other of your ag staff and planning staff. And there's a few extras of these reports too that we can pass off to somebody to put on a bookshelf somewhere if you like, or wherever it might make sense if you want to pass them around.
For sure.
Leave them with you.
We'll make sure they get distributed. And as you're going through your presentation, I was already picking out some pieces that maybe our ASB or Ag Services Board would look at too. So.
Agreed. Maybe we can come talk to them too at some point.
Okay, well, thanks again and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yes, you guys do. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 9.1, the memo regarding project update on bridge load evaluations, page 64.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So last fall, council authorized WSP to do some level 2 coring on some bridges. We have 5 that are being load rated. And you can see the list in the memo. The one west of the Scotland Road, they need to come back and do it because it couldn't get at it through the ice and snow. The one on Range Road 17-0 is closed and they've recommended that it remain closed. Prairie Grove 17.5 north of 601, recommend reducing it from the 10 tons to 5 tons. The access road on Big Valley off 56, the first access, that road is recommended to remain at the 10 tons we've got it at now. And then what we call the Gadsby Dump Road recommends leaving it at the 10-ton rate. So hopefully this information will help us spur on some bridge funding. We still haven't seen any for 2022, but our bridges are starting to really take right on.
Definitely good that we've got this work done so that we can apply if there is funding available. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
They really concern me though, like when we have them in service at the 10 ton, I know you have a mark or 5 tons. I see some are even lowered to 5 ton. I don't know what it tractor, a big four-wheel drive with a air seeder and big grain tank behind would weigh. But I know that one is going to see those crossing because it's a long ways around and people are gonna cross it. What do we do with that? Because I think that could be any bridge we have. The one we closed, how did we close it? How do we keep people from crossing it?
I mean,
Because it's a way people travel, it's a travel to market, and I'm worried that people are still gonna go across it, and then it said to me before, well, it might not be that piece of equipment, but it could be a school bus going over it after. Well, yeah, it could be a school bus, but how do we prove who the last one was to go over? Yet, or do we say the school bus was over 10 ton? They can't even grade across them. It's like they have to turn around, and when you're plowing snow in the winter, you leave a bridge of snow and you turn around and then come from the other direction. So it does create other issues on our roads.
Mr. Green?
So as an example for the one that was closed, it is a land access bridge and we just put barricades up on it. We went back a number of weeks afterwards to check on it. All the barricades have been removed and dumped in the ditch or on the side of the bridge. So I did instruct them to go up there and do something harder to make it difficult to just pick stuff up and remove it. If there is a concern on something like, I think it was the Gadsby Dump Road you're talking about, that we're not going to get compliance, and we probably should consider closing it to reinforce that. However, it is on a shorter inspection cycle now. We can check it more often, or should be checking it more often to see if there's any changes. And then if Brad does find something that is changing quickly, he would jump to closing it anyways, because that's sort of the next level of action as it relates to these things. So if it is a concern, I mean, obviously the closure is the answer right now, so.
Any further questions or comments?
I guess we could do some advertising, try to get the communication up, but ratepayers should be aware that if they go over a bridge where it's low graded and they're over that rated load and they break the bridge, they're going to be responsible for it.
Problem is,
Yeah, well,
it falls through, right?
Yeah.
We're right in road ban time too, and have you ever seen anybody haul a load that was over weight for road bans a bit?
Yeah, I have, and I've watched them yell about paying the fine, but they usually do.
Yeah. Yeah, I just know it's gonna be an issue. It's, in my areas, I know it can be, so.
Well, hopefully we can access some bridge funding to get some of these fixed to, back to the rated, loads. Mr. Stevens?
I have another question. Liability wise, are we covered once we load rate and sign or it's safe as far as our liability goes?
We're doing our due diligence, right? So yeah, I mean, our insurance company would cover us, but if someone blatantly goes out and crosses a road that's rated for 10 ton and they're 20 ton, and they go through it, it's their insurance company that's going to pay for a new bridge.
And the same with the ones that remove barricades, if they go through it, they're liable.
I hope it doesn't come to that. Yeah. Needs to be asked, I guess.
We could move things along and just pull the bridge out. And
Hopefully get their attention.
But, the ones that are complying with, just passenger vehicles and things, it'd be a shame to close them for them, but.
And the danger always is, the one that breaks it may not be the one sitting there, it might be the next one over it that is in the creek, right? But we've done everything that we're supposed to based on the rules that are there and the follow-up study and the whole bit, and posting it for a rating is essentially where we need to go, and that should manage our liabilities there.
For sure, we've done our part. Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll ask for someone to receive this report for information. Mr. Stevens?
I'll give you that motion.
All in favor? Mr. Clark?
I guess I'm in favor to the report, but I'm not maybe in favor of what we're gonna do, because we got busy roads that, I know the one going into Big Valley, it just bothers me that we just say 10 ton, and is there any other solutions we can put? Can we put matting over these bridges to allow for a heavier access? As I said, graders turn around, they don't even grade it in the wintertime. So as we go through it, they're gonna deteriorate even worse. So I guess I'll vote in favor for the engineering report, but I really wonder how much their safety factor is.
Okay, well then that motion has been approved to receive for information. And then if you want to, I guess.
No, it's just, I will be talking to Yvette and Public Works in regards, because it's easy for us to say just go around, but it doesn't happen. When guys are going 24 hours a day trying to get crops in and off, they'll cross that bridge.
Mr. Green?
And I don't care which councilor's area it is, they'll still do it. So that's just the mindset when people are in that harvesting and crop flurry. So at least if we have a bit of a game plan ahead of us, we can talk to them. But I mean, right now we're just saying it's 10 ton, and that's what I've been questioning. When are you going to do something with this bridge? Well, I know we need funding, but I'm asking, is there any other solutions like putting matting across it or things like that in the back? So maybe what I'm asking for Mr. Stolberg is some more clarification on what next steps are on these, because people do use these.
Okay.
If I may, the next steps are either repair or replace the structural components that are causing the load rating, which say that one in Gadsby, I believe the bridge deck would have to come off because we're dealing with piles. So you pull the superstructure, you add, splice, replace piles, and then put the superstructure back on potentially. Or we take a look at just replacing it with a culvert or doing what we have to do there to replace it, which obviously costs money. So it's what are you waiting for? Are we waiting for funding, or should we repair the bridge with our own dollars? If we repair with our own dollars, we generally can't apply it to the funding if it comes later. So, you know, it's a cart versus horse. What comes first thing? If we want to repair it, it's a simple matter of working with the money and getting it done. If we want to wait until somebody else funds it, the one in Big Valley, for instance, that's not our bridge. That's a government's bridge on a government's road. Why should our dollars pay to fix that? We don't mind doing the combined effort on keeping it inspected and going through this process to, you know, keep it safe. But replacing a bridge of that magnitude is costly, and should it be us if it's on the government secondary road network?
Have we taken any liability on with that bridge by doing the engineering study?
I don't know, because I think our liability is covered by, you mean use of it or accepting responsibility? Because responsibility for the inspections has been downloaded to us by the government. However, that road is specifically on their secondary highway network map.
Yeah.
So it's probably arguable either way. They're going to try and make it our bridge, but all of their documentation actually says that road is theirs. They do the surface maintenance on the road. So I'm still not sure why we're doing the inspection on it. We just always have.
It still comes down to the fact that if there's damage done to one of those bridges and the bus goes over it and it's got kids on it, it's all our kids or grandkids on it. So
that's right. So the choice is leave it load rated down and hope for funding, or tackle it with our own money and go in there and get something fixed.
Or close a road.
Or close a road.
Yeah. Or look at a different style of crossing, whether we go in overland, like in some cases, if it's equipment, maybe we can go to a different style of crossing too.
Well, it'd be fairly easy to potentially put a low-level crossing in there or something like that to tide us over for a while, but replacing with a culvert, I mean, culvert's gonna be 20 grand, probably roughly for the pipe itself, maybe up to 30, depending on the size of the crossing. The rest of it's earthworks and materials. It's not a big cost, generally, if we do it ourselves with our own forces to mitigate one of these things or to turn it into a low-level crossing. It's got to work into the program, and do we have time to do it? You tender it out.
Other projects,
It's
don't-
200,000+.
yeah, other projects don't get done.
That's right.
It's council's decision.
Well, as I brought up to the transportation minister, this is products and resources that go up and down these roads, unlike the overpasses going into Calgary and Edmonton. So I guess we got to keep lobbying, but this you start shutting our roads down where we have oil fields and agriculture, you might as well start shutting our businesses down.
Okay, I guess this will be future council discussion to prioritize where we're fixing bridges, where we're doing other road maintenance.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Gender?
But I also look at some of this equipment that's going across these bridges, say like with a tractor. Do they take the weight of the tractor as a whole? A lot of times you've got a single axle on there. By the time the tractor gets across, it's the following axle is following it. It's about half the load rating. It's the same as some of these air seeders. The total weight is not distributed on it. It depends on the axles that are really on there. Ones that I'd be concerned about, say like if you've got a Super B and you've got a tandem axle going on there, and that weight is going to be, say, 15, 20 ton on there. Those would be the ones I can be concerned of. But as for, say, farmers taking a long piece of equipment off over it, it is gradually and in increments that it is crossing that bridge.
Mr. Stolberg?
Yes, go ahead.
I know when we talked about that grader though, Councillor Gender, we went through that grader last year and I think I'd have to look it up again, but it's many ton. Like there's no way even splitting the length of a grader up you'd ever get rid of that weight. If it was pounds per square inch, it's one thing, but if it's actual tonnage on it, it's another measurement because those graders weigh a lot. So same as tractors, same as these grain tanks that haul, pile of grain and fertilizer in them.
Yes, and I believe it's going to be up to the discretion of whoever's going to be traveling over it. It is going to be load rated, and if they believe that they're going to be overrated, they have to follow the rules on it.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I know that there's going to be people that don't, so, and I guess that's up to us to watch.
Okay, any further discussion? Not, we'll move on to 10.1, the bylaws. 1677-22, land use bylaw amendment for data processing. First reading on page 65.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jacinta, did you want to walk through this?
Yes, thank you. So we are looking at an amendment to our land use bylaw to include use a data processing center as a discretionary use in multiple districts. And we have the definition of a data processing center, which would be added to section 8. And part 6, we would be some of the conditions that would be associated with any applications for a data processing center. As well, we are going to be adding this use to the agricultural district, commercial district, and the industrial land use districts of our bylaw. Review. And so today we are looking at first reading and establishing a date for our public hearing for Wednesday, May the 11th at 1 p.m. as usual.
Okay. So, changing times require changing bylaws, of course. Not that many years ago, we hadn't really heard of cryptocurrencies and things, but today it's in our everyday lives. Does someone care to move forward the first reading? Councillor McKay?
I will do so.
Okay, and set the public hearing for May 11th. Leah? Okay. Councillor McKay has moved to set first, or to move first reading and set public hearing for May 11th. All in favor?
In favor?
Okay, that one's carried. 10.2, bylaw 1678-22, the fee bylaw. Up for first, second, and third readings on page 68.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did you want to walk through this?
Yeah, I can walk us through this one. So this is The fee schedule bylaw, we talked to council a bit about. So back last year, we introduced an amendment to the land use bylaw that required temporary RV tags. And at the time, the tags were set to cost $25, but then that fee was waived until December 31st of last year. So administration is now seeking direction on whether to continue with the fee, abolish it, or waive it again temporarily. Just one piece to note, at $25, that fee may not actually offset the increased cost of processing payment. Currently, the citizens are able to utilize the self-serve portal we built. That portal is not currently designed to accept payment itself. So we would have to forego use of the self-serve portal, at least temporarily, and switch to staff generating permits after processing payments manually. So that time investment, the $25 may not be enough for. Administration's brought forward the bylaw, presuming or showing what it would look like with the fee struck permanently. So if that's the direction, it would be passing the bylaw as presented. And you can see here under 5D, that's where it would delete that particular term. But otherwise, we'd be looking for council to craft the motion.
Definitely would be my suggestion to waive it anyways for this year. The logistics just make it difficult to process, and also I've fielded quite a few calls recently on this as it would regard rural farms and things with branding or a family reunion or something. And until we open the land use bylaw and get this crystal clear how this would affect other areas of the county, I really think we probably should waive it. But council will make that motion, I guess. Mr. Stevens.
I agree. I would like to see us debate a more targeted approach with this RV permitting. It's very much an urban type issue, and to apply that broadly to every rural area we have, I believe there's unintended consequences when it applies to our rural homes, to farm weddings, family reunions. Even if some of our large ag producers, they'll bring on additional help in harvest or seeding. And it is not uncommon in our county to them be housed in RVs temporarily for a month to help out with harvest. And that's the unintended consequences. So I would prefer to see a more targeted approach, but I am in favor of waiving the fee for a few reasons. A, we do not want to drive up staff and costs to be able to get this fee. And I've heard the argument about we're covering off our costs to the county. And I don't really agree with that. Correct me if I'm wrong, administration, but an example that was given previously was the cost for septic hauling. And I believe that's done on a contract basis per month or per year. So I don't think additional use changes our costs. These are private costs. These are private lands. And I understand that it's caused issues in urban areas. That's why I'd like to see a more targeted urban type approach. But I'm not in favor of charging someone a fee so that they can have an RV on their own personal property.
Councillor Nyberg has joined us by Zoom and is seeking the floor.
Okay, Councillor Nyberg, you can unmute.
I think, can you hear me?
You betcha.
Okay. Justin, I wouldn't miss talking to you about this for the world, but. In some ways, yes, I agree that we should maybe waive the fee for this year. I think it has accomplished somewhat what we wanted to do, and I agree that it would be something that we can work on a little bit more. I do have some concerns that I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater as it is with this bylaw, because if we have pop-up campgrounds that are in the middle of, say, my ward, then I think this bylaw would be sufficient to deal with that. So I think it does work in that case. I do agree with you that there may need to be some sort of massaging or some sort of fine tuning to figure out what the best case scenario is to deal with it. So yes, I'm in favor of having this bylaw be waived this year. Then we would have a year to discuss it, and maybe in our strat plan coming up, we could have a discussion and work on a wholesome solution.
Okay,
Mr. Silberg?
okay, Mr. Clark and Mr. Gender.
Okay, I don't know if I agree. Like, we brought that fee in for a reason, and I'm listening to everything here, but there's rationale in parts, and you can cut parts apart. But when I compare rural urban setting, and when I talk to that, I'm talking lots that are maybe an acre or half an acre, compared to a farm that has a farmer with a trailer set up in order for the father-in-law to come help him combine or whatever. You're talking hundreds of acres versus, and even on farm sites, you're talking 5 to 6 to 7 acres where these trailers would be. All of this has been based on a complaint basis. If campgrounds sprung up in any of our areas, that would be a discussion we could be having, such as Councillor Nyberg brought to the table. But, you know, I know people are cutting pieces apart, and if we have to look at that bylaw, I don't think you can fairly put where you've got a piece of land the size of a farm and say it's the same as when you've got something that could be an acre or 2 or 3 acres and have 3 or 4 trailers for the summer, because we've received that many complaints on it. And this is the whole thing. It's all complaint based. This is the whole reason we're having this discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Gender.
I'm very much in favor of waiving it so we can discuss it for future times also. But it is also one, I've watched a lot of these people that have brought their trailers up for, say, like the 21 days, then being a real pain in the backside in order to remove it for 3 and then bring it back on. I would be more in favor, okay, we can allow the second one for the duration of the summer, but a third one, that's where you draw the line, say, okay, you can take it up for the weekend, and it's going to have to be removed. Just so that people are not always going to, if they live in Calgary, don't have to remove the trailer for the weekend to interrupt their time up there. Also, say, like in the rural area setting, yes, there's going to be more of them that just want to come out, whether they've got a backside slough that someone wants to go around. These rules apply to them also, but it's also we're in a rural setting. And if we can say, okay, if we take an acreage, okay, 1 per acre, that sort of thing. And if a person wants to put it over the quarter section, I believe that there should be also rules stating, okay, that it's more discrepancy. This is more related to, say, like the urban lifestyle.
And I think the spot for this is in the land use bylaw, the land use districts. I mean, where you want this to apply so that where it's actually needed is targeted for, and where it's not needed wouldn't it? It would not be. But in the time being, I mean, I think we need a bylaw, and I think if we waive the fee, it should make it much easier for our staff to administer that again. But, and Councillor Stevens, you had something else?
Yeah, one more note whenever it is that we do take a look at this bylaw in a more formal manner. Another option is to put a additional permit stream on the table. So for example, we have multiple softball tournaments, these sort of recreational community type events. Perhaps a singular permit for a gathering. It gives us a lot of that same info. hey, Linda Hall's planning a ball tournament on such and such a date. Here's the estimate of people, so we have a little bit of heads up for emergency services, estimated amount of trailers. We don't want to discourage that use, but if we create a different permitting stream, so it's one permit, the whole group is covered, we are given a heads up. I don't think we want to discourage use. It accomplishes a lot of the same things, and it makes it easier for people to comply, since that's not really a problem area that we're necessarily targeting. So it would just create an easier avenue for the public to comply.
Okay, so on this bylaw fees, is that the only one that's up for discussion, is the tagging piece of?
That's right. There's a few other things that council might have in mind with utility rates that we'd like to bring forward to committee as a whole to workshop first. So it's just the one piece.
Okay. Very good. So I'll need movers for first reading.
Mr. Chairman, I would give you that you would move the first reading with waiving the fee for this year.
Okay, Councillor Nyberg has moved first reading. All in favor? Carried.
Favor.
Second reading. Mr. McKay moves second reading. All in favor?
Favor.
Okay, that is carried. Move to proceed to third reading. Councillor Stevens. Okay, Councillor Stevens moves to proceed to third reading. All in favor?
Jay?
Yeah.
So that one had to be unanimous. It was. Now third reading. Councillor Gender.
I'm just wondering on that one there, like I'm proposing like to waive the 21 days, like for the second trailer, that they can keep it there for the duration of the summer instead of being.
This is the fee bylaw. I mean, the fee bylaw.
That would require an amendment to the land use bylaw, and we don't have that before council. And it's likely something we should workshop a little bit more before we bring forward.
We're just mainly working with the fee.
Yes, the fee bylaw.
I'll go third.
And Mr. Gender moves third reading. Hold on.
I just wanted for clarification on the motion. Is it for 1 year that the fee is being waived, or did you put a time limit? There's
I understand it's 1 year.
I understood the motion.
That was what I said, yeah, 1 year waiving, and then we can bring it back next time.
Okay. So all in favor of the third reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that one is passed as well. Okay, so that covers that. We'll now move to 11.1, the Chief Administration Officer's Report, page 82.
Any questions? It's pretty long.
Yeah,
Get through it.
a lot of work as usual. Are there any questions for Yvette or her staff on this?
Just wondering, should we give an update on the ambulance negotiation?
We could. Did you want to do that, or?
Well, I guess, I think it's important for the public to know that currently the Stettler District ambulance contract is 10 years old. We received notice from AHS that they plan to extend our contract another 2 years. So after a considerable effort, we now have them at the negotiation table. So they're planning to extend our contract by 2 years, but they are willing to at least hear us out on terms for those 2 years. The initial meeting was not overly positive, but we still have hope that we can make some headway.
Yeah, so basically they offered us less than what we're receiving now, and we're going in the hole now. We're hoping to impress upon them that we need an increase in it, which will be a 12-year-old contract when the extension's done, to adequately run Stettler District Ambulance and continue the great service that it gives our residents.
Sure, HS isn't running their ambulances for less money than they did 12 years ago or 10. But Councillor Gender?
So how are they going to work it, say, in the next 2 years, our ambulance go kaput? Then where are we gonna get the funding from?
Well, then I guess if we throw in the towel, then the province will come out and operate the same service they do, like in Lacombe and Strathmore, River's got AHS, you know, other places. But the last time we had a chat with them about using AHS to cover off our ambulance service, they committed to one ambulance in Stettler, which could be flexed out, would be flexed out with interfacility transfers. And basically other ambulances flexed in, which could lower your level of service to either an ALS service or a BLS service. And your waiting times, like we've heard of the RMA, you've had a traffic accident, you're laying on the side of the road over 2 hours waiting for an ambulance to arrive.
Local autonomy is much better on running these. Just get the funding.
The theme from both RMA conventions was overwhelming, that the groups that were relying on AHS were very disappointed with their coverage that they are currently receiving. There seemed to be an outcry from rural areas currently that are relying on the AHS ambulance services. I think it would be a mistake to go that route without exploring every other option first.
What do we do if one of our ambulances do go down?
We have spares.
The spare is older than those.
One of the things unique to Stettler District Ambulance is our PRU unit, which AHS refuses to fund. And what it does is it has our manager, who is a certified paramedic, available to go to all calls. She just can't transport in the PRU unit. So if both our ambulances, our ALS ambulances, are out on transfers, which is for emergency calls, and let's say Andrew has a heart attack at the rec center, and they flex in East Central or they flex in Bashaw, they're both BLS services. Andrew's going to get the care that he requires and the drugs that he needs to limit the amount of time he's going to spend in rehabilitation, because the PRU unit is here and our manager can administer the drugs that he requires. And AHS, that PRU unit could be funded and staffed 24 hours a day. So it could be flexed out to Bashaw, Painter, Hannah, Drumheller, which we do now with our ambulances, to back up their BLS service with a paramedic to make it an ALS service. Right now, it's on board for the shift of our manager, and then it's parked. And it's got $40,000 life packs in it and all the equipment needed to save a life, plus the drugs to limit the amount of rehabilitation if you are a serious stroke or heart attack victim. And I think AHS is losing, in my personal opinion, the thing that drives me the craziest is that if you had a child that was, BLS is basically a service where you pick the patient up and get them to the nearest hospital. ALS, and that's why the county of Stettler fought with our ratepayers to go to the paramedics, was that they could administer treatment. You're going to save someone's life, and we have many, many times. But the thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, in my mind, that we have saved AHS because of the ability to administrate the drugs, the non-clotting drugs for heart attacks, the stroke victims, where they're in and out of the hospital in 3 days to 1 week. If you had a stroke, you were usually in a rehabilitation center for up to 1.5 years, if you came out of it at all. And we're saving them that. My rant for the day.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Justin and Yvette, for that update. It's good to know where that one's at. Any other questions on the administration report? If not, I'll ask for a mover. Mr. Stevens? Okay, all in favor?
In favor.
Still there, Mr.
In favor.
Okay, that one's carried as well. The financial reports, 11.2.1 to 11.2.3, pages 135 to 156 in the agenda. Any questions? I think Ernie had one emailed in, which was answered.
I'll just respond to that one there. A couple months ago, Yvette had let me know about this one, that it was Bearspaw had overpaid their taxes. So it was just one that it's kind of reimbursement on there, just in case someone else had not really seen or heard about that part of her.
It was a settlement of a, they took us to the local land tribunal, whatever they call it thing now. And they won. It was based on the value of their assets.
Right. So that was reimbursed to them.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll ask Councillor Gender.
I'll move it, please.
Councillor Gender moves all the financial reports. All in favor?
In favor.
Mr. Clark? Just took a break. Okay, that was passed anyway. Now we'll move on to 11.3, Councillor fee sheets on page 156.
I'll move in this.
Okay, Councillor Gender moves the councillor fee sheets be approved as presented. All those in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Okay, that one is carried as well. Move on to councillor committee reports. The Public Library, FCSS, Battle River, Seniors Housing, and Stellar Sea Cleaning Plant. I did have one comment on the Battle River Research Group and the Stellar Sea Cleaning Plant. Being these are of an agricultural nature, it was wondered if these should be in the ASB package for committee reports. Any thoughts from council? I mean, doesn't the funding for Battle River come through the ASB, whatever, the general?
No, it's taken out. That's a council operations.
Is out of this one? Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the councillor appointments are appointments of councillors from council, so it's probably the most appropriate.
Okay. Okay, so I'll let that person know that. Any questions from the reports?
I'll receive it for information.
Okay, Councillor Nyberg has received for information. All in favor?
Favor. In favor.
That is carried. Okay, consent agenda items. Okay, so how many of these need to be discussed? The report from STARS is just for information. Crime Stoppers, request for donations, 179. Guess that one needs to be looked at, isn't it?
Mr. Chairman, it's just basically Central Alberta Crime Stoppers, Nikki, they were asking for a donation. The rest I think is information unless you want to discuss the letter from the National Police Federation.
Okay, I guess we'll pick up the Crime Stoppers one first, and they have requested donation.
Do we put that out to the public or should that be through a rural crime committee?
We could probably do both.
No?
You had awkward silence. That says we could probably do both.
Okay, yeah, because it's, we do have something in place kinda, and maybe it should be something you'd wanna be part of that whole thing, wouldn't you?
Yep.
We can forward it to the rural crime committee
Yeah.
and they can discuss it, what they'd like to do.
Yeah, and then maybe share it through our social media as well.
Sure.
Yeah. Like I can make that recommendation or motion or whatever you want to do, or however you want to receive it, so.
We do need a motion on that one, if you would care to.
I would make the motion to put it to our rural crime committee and have them investigate it and come back to, put something back to council.
Yeah, they can have a recommendation and, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Question, Wes. Rural crime had phoned me up and they were asking about,
Just a minute, Councillor Nyberg, Councillor Gender has the floor.
okay, that along rail, the avenue that within Erskine, like the speed limit, it coincides with the rest of Erskine. So how would they ever handle that with policing?
Well, so we set the speed limit in Erskine, the county has, and so basically, within the boundaries, just like the engine retarder brakes, that's under our jurisdiction. So if we say 70 kilometers an hour, you get a car going 80, you're gonna get a ticket.
It's a part that is within Erskine, like that, right along Highway 12.
Right.
Like that, is that classified within Erskine at 50?
Yes.
Or is that going to be classified at 70, being next to the highway? That was a question they asked me to bring.
Oh, really? I never thought about that. I would say it would be the highway, but.
Yeah, let us dig into it and get
Yeah.
back.
Okay.
Councillor Nyberg?
Mr. Chair, my apologies. I can't hear Ernie very well, so I have to turn my volume up and then everybody else comes on and it's quite loud. So my apologies for interrupting. My only concern is on the motion that Mr. Clark has made. I think the rural crime, committee does have some funding in our budget, so they may be able to deal with it just at their level, not even bringing it back to council. However they deal with it, I have no problem. I'm just like to make that observation.
Right.
I'd be fine with that too.
Yeah, that is a good point. They may have, they may wish to do some funding on their own. Yeah, good point. Okay, so I think with that, I think we're ready to vote on Councillor Clark's motion. All those in favor?
Favor?
Favor.
And that's carried. The National Police Federation, I thought that might need to be looked at individually.
And I read some of it, I gotta be honest, I didn't read it all.
I can speak to it.
That's perfect.
The National Police Service has asked the County of Stettler to join them in their call to action to the government of Alberta to halt the idea of the new provincial police service. They would like us to send a letter to the Premier. They've provided a draft suggested copy of sending a letter to Alberta's Premier requesting this stop and that we retain the RCMP police force. They're claiming that an overwhelming 84% of Albertans support retaining the RCMP and believe the government of Alberta should instead focus on addressing root causes of crime and improving social services. In their call to action, they're asking us to provide them with a logo before April 15th and also sign and send a letter to the Premier. That's their request.
So yeah, April 15th, that's mighty quick, so we'd have to make that decision today if we want to contribute a letter as well to the province. I think from what we've been hearing in some of these visits from RCMP and even provincial, the feedbacks are all overwhelming supporting the system we have. Certainly wouldn't have a problem with that letter. Justin?
Based on the meetings I've attended, the idea of the provincial police force, we were very much lacking a lot of necessary information, and questions seemed to go unanswered that were out of scope, if you will. So I can understand the support for this. My only question to council is, are we picking an argument with the province that we can't win, in the sense that I support the idea of going after root causes and the court backup and the catch and release system. I'm just wondering if this is going to create animosity when we need them right now.
Okay. Well, that's a good point, I guess. Nikki?
The RMA has also submitted a report to the Ministry of Justice and Solicitor General opposing the creation of the APPS. So that was sent out to us on the 5th of April. So they have started.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I have to agree with Mr. Stevens on this one. I think, and my concern is this is going to be when we do start complaining about having enough police in our area, they're going to come back, well, you didn't want the provincial police force, that would have fixed it. And I see that as the argument coming through. Unfortunately, I don't agree with it, because I am also agreeing with Mr. Stevens. Their plan that they put forward has a lot of holes in it, and it doesn't give us all the details. So I'm not so sure we need to get down this road. I think the RMA has stated the position very well, and I think we advocate on where we advocate on a regular basis when we do talk about it. I think they know what the provincial government knows where it is. So I'm not sure if this is something that's necessary.
Okay. Well, it might be duplication. RMA represents us all. So if RMA is speaking on our behalf already, that perhaps is good enough. But the floor is open if someone wants to make a motion to, Councillor Jenner.
Maybe we're gonna have to design another style of t-shirt to go up there again.
Okay. If I don't hear any motions, I'll just move on and it'll be accepted for information with the rest. Okay. And of course, the traffic stats for the RCMP are in there. There's no questions on this piece. I'll ask for a motion to be received for information. Councillor Gender gives the motion to receive the consent agenda for information. All in favor?
In favor?
Favor?
And that is carried.
Favor?
So I think at this time we're ready to move in camera. If I could get a motion to move in camera. Councillor McKay moves us in camera. Looks at 2:54. Okay. Okay, we're back on stream, Andrew, yet?
Yep.
We are back on stream. Okay, welcome back. We have some items to discuss.
I'll get the ball rolling here.
Okay, the first one will be a land sale.
I'll make the motion that, the county proceeds with the Town and Country Museum land purchase of 3 acres.
Okay. Justin Stevens has made the motion to proceed with the land sale to the museum. Any discussion? All those in favor?
In favor?
That motion is carried. The next item of business we have to deal with are lot sales in Botham. We have an offer for 2 lots. Mr. Clark, are you there? That's your ward.
Yes, I put the motion forward that we proceed forward knowing that we have to advertise because they are under what our expected rate or what we thought market value was. So, but staff will follow through with that.
So you are making a motion to accept their offer?
Yeah, to accept their offer, but we'll also have to advertise it to ensure that all bases are covered through the MGA.
Okay, Mr. Clark has made the motion to accept the offer for 2 lots in Botham. Any discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
And that one's carried. We've also had an in-kind donation request from the Stellar Ag Society on improvements to their rodeo grounds. Mr. Jenner?
I'll make that motion that we go ahead with the up to maximum $25,000 in kind with the rates provided by our Public Works.
Okay, Mr. Gender has made a motion to support the Stellar Ag Society request to donate $25,000 worth of in-kind work of equipment and staff. Equipment and operators, I guess. Any discussion? Mr. Stevens?
Just a quick clarification that this is support by our equipment and operators. This is not us managing or engineering or designing the project. It is strictly on a support basis.
Yeah, that's correct. It was just, the request was for use of equipment. They are managing the project themselves. Any other discussion? Not all those in favor?
Favor.
And that one's carried as well. We've also had a legal update from our legal team. We'll have a motion coming out of that discussion.
I'd make that motion that the council of the county of Stellar direct administration to transfer in accordance with section 553 sub 1 of the MGA, the costs awarded pursuant to the order of Justice Nixon in the sum of $193,416.90 to tax roll 523500. In the event that this amount is reduced by subsequent assessment by the assessment officer of the Court of Queen's Bench, administration is directed to revise the amount added to the tax roll accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion of Mr. Clark?
Favor.
And that one is carried. Our next meeting is Wednesday, May 11th, 2022. And I'll ask for a motion of adjournment. Mr. Gender moves to adjourn. Okay, all those in favor?